Oh hey, welcome back. This is the Accounting Struggle. I am Courtney. So glad you could join us today. Today we're going to be talking about the CPA exam. I got a ton of questions from people about the CPA exam, just kind of what to expect, any advice I might have, and there's so many different things to break down about the exam, but this is going to be more so for people who are new in the journey, who are at the beginning, they haven't started taking it or they haven't started passing any sections yet. This is for you. So if you are interested in sitting for the CPA exam and you're just trying to get an idea of, what should I expect? What do I need to know? I'm going to be talking about that today. So I will link to the other 3 sections in the description box because I'm covering all 4. And of course, if there's anything that I did not cover that you are still dying to know about, let me know in the comments and I will get to that. So today I'm going to be talking about regulation. REG, R-E-G, regulation is the tax portion of this exam. It covers all of your tax law stuff, a personal, not a favorite actually, but a personal connection to REG because the first part of my accounting career was spent in public accounting, working as a tax associate. I did that for almost 3 years. So I definitely had this mindset that REG was going to be the easiest for me. And it turns out that was not true. Audit was the easiest for me, but REG is still a great exam, but it is kind of tough. Even for someone who worked in tax, if you hated tax, you hated your tax classes, you never plan on working in tax, and you don't connect with the information and you don't understand it, this is probably going to be a bit challenging for you, but you can pass it. I mean, tons of people do it. So what you need to know about regulation is that this one is 8 chapters, and again, it covers all the stuff you would learn in tax. There's some business law stuff, but most of it is tax. Tax journal entries, from going from book, which is like GAAP, to tax income, how to calculate taxable income, how to arrive at it, how to calculate AMT, which is the alternative minimum tax. And now there's a ton of new stuff in there that wasn't in there before because of tax reform, which makes it 1,000 times harder. But again, still possible. So the stuff like interest business limitation, what is the big one? QBI, qualified business income, is on there. I mean, just all the good stuff, girl. All of it. There's so much stuff on there. And what frustrates me about this exam, but I get it, is that it is so impractical. In practice, your software does most of the thinking for you in terms of like thresholds and limitations and age limits and stuff that you would not have to memorize, and calculations. It does all that stuff for you. And of course, that doesn't mean you don't have to think. It just means you don't have to think about nitty-gritty details like how old a child needs to be for certain credits, or what a certain threshold is. The software is incredibly intuitive and it calculates that stuff for you. Not on this exam. On this exam, you have to do all the thinking. You have to memorize all the thresholds. You have to know how to calculate all the stuff by hand. Completely impractical. That is why we have Excel. But I digress. That's just what's on the exam. That's how it is. So you got to know it. So this one is probably the most math intensive. This and BEC are like, you're going to use those scratch boards they give you at the CPA exam. So just go into it understanding that this is one where you have to practice a lot in order to get it. And it's a lot more conceptual. So there's a lot of math and it's a lot of concepts. And it's what makes it so tricky, again, with REG is the details, the nitty gritty details. If you ever took a tax course, you know that there are so many exceptions. There's an exception to the exceptions exception. The exceptions do not stop. It's always case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, case 4B, case 4BC. I mean, it just doesn't stop. It's ridiculous. I don't know who is writing this stuff. I don't know what type of games are being played. How's it going down? I don't understand it, but that is just the IRS laws that we, live by, and that's just what the world is. So you have to understand it the way it is written. So you just have a lot of rules that you need to get acquainted with. And then the basic foundations of individual taxation, taxation for estates and governments, and yes, there's also some business law stuff that's covered on regulation as well. So yeah, it's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, and it's not the most ridiculous section of the exam, but it is intense and there is a lot. And this one is 8 chapters. Or the best way to approach this exam is to practice. Practice often. It's not all logic. A lot of it is just remembering how to calculate things. If you can recall, how do I arrive at adjusted gross income? What is included in adjusted gross income and what is not? How do I arrive at alternative minimum tax? And what do I need to know? What rules go into that? If you can kind of get through that stuff, then this will be fine. But simulations are also pretty serious on this exam. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of information that they will give you. In the simulations, it's basically like you'll usually start with one task, which is maybe an email that you'll have to read. And then there's several other things that I would consider to be little hurdles that you have to jump over in order to accurately get through the entire task. And a lot of it is just opening other documents and looking at them in order to appropriately figure out what is all needed. And it tries to simulate what you would get from a client. So if a client sends you a W-2 and then they send you a 1098 statement and just a bunch of documentation, then they send you an email and then they say, oh, actually that meal, some of it included entertainment, and there's a lot of information where it's testing your knowledge. Do you know which rules to apply? Do you know if you can expense entertainment? Can you only expense 50%? Is it 0%? Which year are we talking about? So there's a lot of little details, like I said before, that you will have to really, really know. And the thing, again, this exam in particular, they all do this, but this exam is one where dates really, really matter. And down to the month. I mean, it's not, when you're calculating depreciation, you have to look at that question. Did they say June? Did they say July? Like, what did they say? Because, is it the full year? Am I calculating for 6 months? There's so much that you have to consider. And, laws change throughout the year. So are we talking about a divorce that was in 2017, or are we talking about a divorce that was in 2019? There's a lot to cover on this exam and a lot of little details, like I said, that are going to make or break whether or not you will pass this exam. So go into this one with the readiness of just overcoming any frustration that you have with these types of topics, and just the patience of getting this information down. It's just going to take patience, especially if this is not your cup of tea. If you hate tax, you are going to need to really just calm yourself down, put on some some spa music in the background, burn some sage before you get to studying this information, because it is very, very detailed. Especially, oh girl, the like-kind exchanges. What a time. So yeah, good luck. I hope you do well. I hope that this information or this brief overview was helpful. Of course, like I said, if there's anything that I did not cover, please let me know in the comments. And like I said with the other exams, make sure you start with the multiple choice questions before you do the lectures, so that when you go to listen to the lectures, you've already been exposed to the information and you are listening more actively. So do that every time, do that with every chapter, do that with every exam. Best of luck to you. Let me know how it's going. Keep in touch. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.